Welcome back to Pour Temecula. I'm your host, Rick DeLucio, with
Shannon Cole.
We are here today to talk about sparkling wine and sparkling wine production in Temecula Valley. But before we get to that, we have a guest with us, a friend of Shannon. Lacy is here, so welcome, Lacy.
Thank you.
We always ask our guests what you've been drinking.
Ooh, okay. For whatever reason, I have been on an Aperol Spritz kick lately.
Yum.
It seems like it's a yearly thing. For some reason, I'm like, oh, Aperol Spritz, Hugo Spritz. So I've been really enjoying those, like fizziness. But also, I recently had a blueberry muffin tart ale from Great Notion Brewing, and it was so good. Phenomenal.
Ooh. Where is that out of?
Oregon. I think
Okay.
Portland.
Cool.
Really tasty.
Shannon?
I have been actually trying to get myself out to wine country more. I've got that little Temecula passport that I'm trying to fill up. So I took, actually Lacy and I went over to Ace Winery and did a little tasting with Dirk and Michelle. And then my friend Bill showed up with a surprise bottle of vermouth that he made and wanted us to taste. And then Michelle comes out with her bottle of vermouth. So
vermouth, okay.
Yeah.
Is that the new hot thing?
It must be.
Well, so I believe we're talking about Bill Newman. Shout out to Bill.
Yes.
Hello, Bill, friend of the podcast. He has also doing orange cello, right?
Yes. So yeah, if you've heard of limoncello, Bill makes orange cello because he has a bunch of orange trees.
Yeah,
on his
he's
property.
texted me a few times wanting to talk about the orange cello, and every time I call it limoncello, and then he corrects me. It's orange cello, not limoncello. Okay, so I got it right finally. So where does the idea to make vermouth come from? Seems sort of random.
So random. Bill just got really into it. I don't know why Dirk and Michelle decided to do it, but it was really interesting tasting both of them side by side because Bill's was very Christmassy, lots of spices, and then Michelle's was much brighter, lighter, maybe a little citrusy. Do you remember it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was lovely.
Yeah. And then he brought a little bit of club soda and we just mixed a little dash in with club soda. It was delicious. Who knew you would drink
Are you,
vermouth like
Lacy, a vermouth drinker?
I don't know that I've ever had vermouth in my life, outside of maybe in a martini. But
Yeah, or if you had a Manhattan, I think vermouth or Negroni. I know for sure it's in a
maybe
Negroni.
Negroni, yeah.
But not a
it's definitely-
connoisseur.
No, not by any means.
Is anybody really a connoisseur of vermouth? I guess Bill is. So
Yeah.
interesting. So was it a dry or
Yeah.
was it a
No,
sweeter vermouth?
No, they were both dry.
Okay.
Yeah, they were just made totally different, and it was. I felt
red
like,
or like a green. Like the dry is usually associated with like a green vermouth. Like that's why it works in martinis because it's dry and it doesn't have a lot of color to it.
they were. So Bill's was a little more like ambery, maybe.
I was going to say, I think
Oh,
Michelle's
so
was like more yellowish
And then hers
kind
was
of.
a little
Yellow.
yellow.
Yeah, that would be
pale
more
straw
traditional.
yellow. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Never thought I would do that.
So are they on a kick to do that like in a more like a sales order? Like Bill
think
has this orange
Bill-
cello,
yeah, Bill
which he's trying to get a
wants to.
license for. Okay.
Yeah, he's trying to do that. I think the way he's making it right now, which he can probably speak to when we have him on the podcast eventually, but yeah, I think the way he was making his, it was pretty costly. So he was trying to figure out how to take the
Very
cost down a
inefficient,
little
yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
But-
sorry, Bill. I'm not going to pay $100 for a vermouth. When you could go get Gallo for like $6.99 at the store.
Yeah, it was fun though.
Cool.
What about you?
Well, fittingly enough, I did on Valentine's Day do a large champagne tasting. Now, you and I have discussed before that, fittingly for our episode, we're not the biggest like champagne or sparkling wine lovers. I mean, well, I'll always take it, right? No, I mean,
Yeah,
nothing's going to beat that.
Turn it down.
But in the scheme of things, like if we're making purchases or whatever, like for me personally, that is like, it's got to be like the most amazing champagne
Yeah.
or sparkling wine to get me to buy it. Or you buy it for shows like this, or I only want to spend like $7.99 buying a Prosecco at Costco for drinks, right? But I still love going to those tastings, and seeing what else is out there, especially things that weren't from like the big houses like Clicquot or from Krug or anything that along those lines. So it was fun. It was great. I got to see a friend of mine, Scott, there. And so we got to compare some of these and just catch up over the past year. So
fun.
Yeah, that's the best part, I think, of Champagne is just, I don't find it really contemplative. Like if you get a great, remember when we had the Japanese Pinot Noir?
Yes.
That was a contemplative wine. You sit down with that and you're like trying to evaluate it. Like champagne and sparkling wine to me is just more like it's there and it's fun.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So fittingly enough, we're here to taste and talk about some of the sparkling wine and wine production in our area. I don't even know if there's a winery out there anymore, at least locally, that is not doing some style of or offering some sort of sparkling wine. It seems like everybody's got something.
Yeah, whether it's made here or not.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the production is actually not made here. I guess we can go into it a little bit. It's just Temecula is not really set up. There's only 2 producers that really have the ability to do a traditional style wine or traditional styled sparkling wine or any sparkling wine. So a lot of the grapes can be picked from here and then sent up north or sent to another facility to make the sparkling wine, or it's just basically grown and made somewhere else and then put a label on and brought here and sold here. So anyway, I guess we can go over a little bit of sparkling wine history, right?
Yeah, tell us about the history.
I guess so. I'm just going to read a little bit. So sparkling wine originates to the 16th and 17th century by accident, and that was where cold temperatures paused the fermentation on a wine, and then it trapped the carbon dioxide in there, and when it warmed up in the spring, all of a sudden you had bubbles in the bottle. For a long time, this was viewed as a flaw, and a lot of people like to associate Dom Perignon in France with discovering sparkling wine, but the truth is that his job was to make the bubbles go away because they viewed it as a fault. Now, to what he did is he figured out some better ways to improve the quality of the sparkling wine in that process, as well as the idea of blending wines together to get a better quality or to get a tastier product. And a lot of people will also talk about Madame Clicquot. And as we were talking about, Madame Clicquot invented the process of improving the quality and clarity of sparkling wine by this process of riddling, which we'll explain later.
Yes.
It's a way to get all the sediment and all the gunk that happens in the process of making a sparkling wine to the neck of the bottle, and then you remove that gunk out of there. But it's a whole process, and we'll talk about that. A lot of this came about in southwest France in the area of Languedoc, in an area called Limoux, Limaux. And that was where they first sort of saw in the 14th, 15th centuries of this bubbly thing going on with wines. And while they were perfecting it in England about the 1600s, I think of the late 1660s, there was a gentleman by the name of Christopher Merret, Merret. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He figured out and perfected this. He basically, at the same time it was going in France, he was doing this in England, perfecting basically creating a sparkling wine. And that's where we're at today. Now, it's been refined over the years to they figured out that they have to have different bottles, weightier bottles, stronger bottles, because as those bubbles are trapped in the bottle, the lighter bottles, the traditional, what you would see like a Merlot or a Cabernet in, what they call a claret bottle, they would blow up. So they figured out that they needed better bottles. So that was kind of happened in the early 1800s. So there you go. There's a little bit of sparkling wine history. So before we get into the different methods of making sparkling wine, we're going to go over what you first need. Well, you need a growing environment that is kind of conducive to growing grapes. And why is that, Shannon?
So you obviously need grapes to make the base wine, which is what you'll then turn into the sparkling wine. And for those grapes, you really need cooler temperatures. You want lots of acidity in the grapes themselves. And then, so if you don't have super cool temperatures all the time, you could find a climate that has a really big diurnal shift. So anywhere that's warm during the day and then really cold at night, that'll help the grapes keep that acidity in them.
Yeah, and at this stage, when you're making a base wine, you don't want to overly ripe wine, because you want that base wine to be between 9% and 11% in alcohol. Because the process of making sparkling wine, you're going to introduce, I'll talk about it later, we're going to introduce more sugar and yeast and create a higher alcohol. You want to end up at the end with like 11 to 12, maybe 12.5% alcohol sparkling wine. So you have to start with a base wine that's lower than that, because you're going to increase the alcohol through the process of making a sparkling wine. Make sense?
Yep.
I hope so. I mean, that's what we're told. So what can you make a base wine from? Generally, the top two are?
Chardonnay, Pinot Noir.
Right. So every high-end champagne is going to be made from primarily those two grapes. Additionally, in Champagne, also Pinot Meunier. Mm-hmm. Locally, we see it made from anything, really.
Yeah, Sauvignon Blanc, Zinfandel.
Yeah, and if you go to a seminar with John McPherson, who makes sparkling wine for South Coast and for Carter Estates, he'll tell you any varietal that's grown here can make a good sparkling wine. I don't know if that's true, but you can make a sparkling wine from anything. That's all you need. You need a wine with a lot of acidity to it.
Yep.
So, but even today, we might have one or two examples that we're going to taste later on that are not from those traditional grapes. Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Two for sure.
We have two.
And I'm trying to think what the other one is. All right, we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. So yeah, you can use anything. We talked about harvest. The key to harvest is retaining that acidity and having a lower alcohol level to start with. So you have to do what? Oh, as you cough, die coughing from thirst. She's like Shannon wants to get onto the wine drinking part of this.
I'm thirsty.
Part.
So yeah, when you pick the grapes, you don't want high alcohol. So that means your grapes need to have less sugar than they normally would if you were making a regular still wine. And you want the high acidity, you want less sugar, so a little bit less ripe. But there is a kind of a perfect spot, because you don't want it too underripe to where you're just getting tart, bitter green. Yeah, you don't want those kind of strange. If you've been lucky enough to go out to the vineyards during the growing season, you can sneaky. I'm not. We didn't tell you to do.
We didn't tell you to do this at all. But you can maybe something falls on the ground, you got to pick it up, because it's just useless then, right? You can try some grapes throughout the whole season, and you can taste that maturity and development throughout the whole season.
Yeah, and if you've never tasted grapes off the vine before at different stages, I was told, a winemaker told me, it'll make sense to you once it's ripe, once the seeds are ripe on the inside. And I didn't get it until, one day I bit into it and the seeds were actually not, murdering my mouth. Yeah, and early on in the early stages, it has that real, it's really so tart. Bitter. It's really tart and bitter. So you have to, when you make sparkling wine, you have to capture that it's gone beyond that bitter phase, but not too sugary. Mm-hmm. So it's a skill, right? Yeah. And we appreciate that from all the people that do it. So after you harvest, you're essentially going to make that base wine, and you have to all the things that would go into making a base wine. You have to figure out generally the best way is to you want to whole bunch as well as press gently, so that you're creating a product that's really going to capture all the aromas and all the flavors without introducing too much oxygen at that point, or really
if you're pressed really hard and really rough, you capture a lot of like grape skins and color from it. So you're really looking to capture just the essence of the fruit and that base wine at this point when they harvest. You also really want to take some time and clarify that wine. So you don't want like any skin or any like little seeds that would get in there. You would want to make sure that you filter that out, or what you could do is sedimentation, where you let it sit in cold, like a fridge essentially, and you get it really cold, and all that hard stuff, all the like things that would make it cloudy or give it an off taste, like the seeds, they're all going to fall to the bottom, and then essentially you just siphon off the liquid from there, then go about your normal fermentation process, which is usually on the colder side, because again, you want to retain any of the aromatics that are there and all the good stuff that's there. And you also want to generally, unless you're making a certain style, use cultured yeast rather than wild or native yeast. That might, even in Champagne, I know they're proud of their terroir in Champagne, but I still think they use a cultured yeast because they have more control over the fermentation and what it produces.
Yeah, and most of those producers want a really consistent style year after year, so it makes sense that they would want to use the same yeast strain.
Did I miss anything there?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so there's a whole nother process with white wine making called malolactic conversion. It's sort of up to each individual producer whether or not they want to lower the acidity or basically, if your grapes come in too acidic after fermentation, you can inoculate it with this malolactic bacteria, which will soften the acidity a little bit. And give it a little bit of a creamy texture too. And that's where people talk about the buttery. That's a whole nother podcast on that. But it is you can do that. So really, the key to all these production styles is what you do after that initial wine is created. All right. Do we want to lead into what both of us think is the easiest process, and that is called forced carbonation?
Yes. So forced carbonation, basically, the winemaker will start with that still wine that we were just talking about, and they will inject carbon dioxide into the wine, making bubbles. It's basically like a soda stream for your wine.
Now, the key to that is really you're going to get the bubbles, and they just kind of go quickly. So it's like if you open up a can of soda and you pour it into a glass, the bubbles are almost gone, right? Yeah. You can still sort of taste it a little bit. And I think a key for me when we get to the tasting part of this is that they're going to taste like heavier. They're not soft.
They're like harsh bubbles.
Harsh bubbles, right. But they're really just trying to capture the essence of that initial wine. So there aren't a lot of flavors of like aging. Like you would not get any of the like doughy or yeast or like bread yeast or sourdough or brioche. It's really just a wine that tastes like it's got bubbles in it.
Yeah. And then the next method is ancestral method, which is also known as pétnat or pétillant naturel. And this is when you are making your still wine, but then partially through the fermentation, when the yeast is still eating up the sugars, you put a cap on the bottle, and it basically finishes fermentation inside the bottle. So as the yeast are eating the sugars and creating alcohol, carbon dioxide is a byproduct of that. So that's what makes the little bubbles inside the bottle. A lot of times they will just, winemakers and producers will just serve those or sell those bottles with the same crown cap on them. Some of them will kind of disgorge the bottle, which we'll talk a little bit about later, and filter out all of the dead yeast cells. But a lot of them don't. So if you do get a pétnat, that's, those clumpy, chunky things you see at the bottom of the bottle. Not harmful at all. It's just dead yeast cells from after fermentation's done. And that's a pétnat.
All right. Our third method is what is considered the champagne style It's the traditional method is the technical term, or method champenoise is also a term that's thrown around quite often. And essentially what you're doing is you're taking that base wine, you're putting it into a bottle, you're adding a little bit of sugar and yeast, it's re-fermenting in the bottle, and then after it's done re-fermenting, you see all this, you see all this stuff in the bottle, but it's cloudy at this point, so you have to let it sit on what's considered the lees, because after it's done fermenting, that's called the lees, because it's left behind, and you basically... You can, whatever kind of style of wine that you're making or sparkling wine that you're making is how much time that you leave it on the lees. But during that process of leaving it on the lees, and the wine inside is combining with the lees to give it more flavor, like bread dough and biscuit and brioche and all these flavors that we'll talk about later on, and like dried fruit and stuff like that. You know, you have to turn the bottle on its side, and they have machines to do this now, but the old way was called riddling, and you turn it on its side, and all that like stuff like filters down to the bottom towards the neck of the bottle. So imagine the bottle's kind of like on its side, but the head of the bottle's like tilted down at like, I don't know, it's like a maybe 20, 30 degree angle, something like that.
I thought they said 30 at Schaumburg.
Yeah, I could look on the sheets in front of me, but that's no fun. So over time and every day, there used to be someone's job, and I'm sure in some places it still is someone's job, to go around every day and turn that bottle just a little bit.
Yes.
Just a little bit. But they do make machines that do all of this for them now. So you're either going to get... and I guess it depends on the quality. So if you're going to pay hundreds of dollars for a bottle of champagne, the expectation is that along that process, someone was probably hand riddling all those bottles. Whereas something that was, in the $20 price range for this style of sparkling wine was probably done by a machine. So, and with the machine process, it happens a lot quicker. With the hand done riddling process, I mean... I can't imagine having that job.
Yeah.
Do you either love that job? I guess you got to love that job, right?
I would be so good at that job
every single day. There better be some like perks, like every other bottle, or every day you can pick one of the bottles and like take it home or something. So there's got to be some perks in there. So you can then, once that process is done, houses have the ability that you do it in. You're done in 6 months, you're done in a year, you can take any amount of time through this process that you want to. I've even heard of like late disgorgement. So you can let it rest in the lees for as long as you want. Mm-hmm. And the longer it's on there, the more of these flavors, the more dried fruit it's going to have. Mm-hmm. The less time you have on there, the more fresh fruit, the more freshness, but less biscuity and dough it's going to have. So that's one way when you're kind of like tasting. If it has less of that, it probably hasn't spent that. It's probably a more kind of like inexpensive champagne or sparkling wine. And the more of it that there is, it's probably a higher end sparkling wine or a vintage. So once you're done with that, they have the process of disgorgement. And essentially what you're doing is you got to remove all that crap, all those dead lees that are in there. And there's machines that can do this now, but the really fun way to do it is you take your bottle and you dip it into this, like, did they show that at Schaumburg?
I don't think so.
So you can dip it into this almost like freezing liquid. It's like salts, it's like a brine, but it's super, super cold. You dip the bottle in there, the end with the stuff in it, and it like instantly freezes within like 3 seconds or something like that. And then you basically have to flip off the bottle cap that's on the bottle. At that point, they have like a cap. You flip it off, and the pressure that's been built up in there shoots out the crap.
Huh.
So it's like a little gun.
It's a little like frozen ball.
It's like a frozen
yeast.
ball of yeast that shoots out of it, and then you immediately have to send it down the production line because you basically had gotten rid of some of the volume. So then what you do is you have to add some volume back into it by adding some of the original still wine or something else to it that you want to do. And talk about that next. So like I said, there are machines that just do this now. They'll dips it in there and freezes it and then shoots it out and then sends it on down the line. So then you have your dosage. So when people talk about brut or they talk about any number of things, the dosage is where you will add a little bit of wine and a little bit of sugar and a little bit of yeast. And you put that back into the bottle to basically reach the volume that was in the bottle before. Then that's when you see your normal cork, the champagne cork that gets put in there, and then the wire around it, because this process is going to result in the bubbles that you now have when you open that bottle up. Make sense?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the traditional method. Now, there are some variants on this along the way, like I said, aging, but the other kind of variants that you can do are, if you want to make a rosé champagne at this point, you can add in your dosage some other, like Pinot Noir, and that's going to give it a little bit of color, right? So your base wine has might be a clear liquid like Chardonnay, and if you want a slight rosé, you would add another wine, a little bit of Pinot Noir to give it that color, and then your yeast and your sugar so that it provides the sparkling element. And how much sugar is how much sugar is added in that process is what gets labeled as the sweetness terms. You want to go over these sweetness terms?
Sure. So this is something that was a listener question a while back, actually, and we were saving the answer for this episode. So this is kind of the European labeling terms for sweetness in sparkling wine. So it goes brut nature, which is also known as zero dosage, and there's 0 to 3 grams per liter of sugar left over in the wine. So this is like nothing's been added. That's just whatever's left over.
Very bone dry.
Yeah. And then from there it goes extra brut, which is 0 to 6 grams per liter. And then brut, which is 0 to 12.
And that's what we probably see the most of.
Yeah, brut is I think the most common, especially around here.
And it confuses me all the time. The extra part, you would think extra sugary, right? No, it just means extra dry.
Yeah, it's very confusing, which is I think is where the listener question came from. And then extra sec means also extra dry, extra trocken, which is also confusing. But extra sec means 12 to 17 grams per liter is left over. And then sec, also secco or trocken, which again is confusing because trocken means dry. That is 17 to 32 grams per liter. And then demi-sec, also known as halbtrocken, is 32 to 50 grams per liter.
How many times could you say it fast without it? Halbtrocken.
And then the last, the highest grams per liter is 50 or more, and that's known as dough or dolce or sweet, and that's a lot of sugar. Can't say I've ever had one of those before.
So I think the key is just start with brut. If you see brut, that's like just a normal amount of sugar has been added to it to kind of balance out the wine or balance out the sparkling wine. And if you see sec on it, basically that's where it's going to get kind of
that's sweet.
Sweeter. It's going to get sweeter. So those are the two terms. And if you see 0 or no, that means that is going to be bone dry, like nothing. Kind of to go along with that. So that's just your finishing, your sweetness style. There's a couple other things I think you briefly asked about Blanc de Noir and Blanc de Blanc. Yes. So Blanc de Noir means it's a white wine from red grapes or from black grapes. So if you press your wine really quickly, it won't give you any color, ideally. And so that juice that's inside of most black grapes is actually pretty clear, but as soon as it comes in contact with the skins depending on the varietal, like Syrah is almost instantly or like Petite Syrah is like super quick. You get a lot of color. But other grapes like Pinot Noir, you can press it, and as long as it doesn't stay on the skins for very long, you get a clear liquid out of it. So that's Blanc. Blanc de Noir, without an S on the end, is from one grape, generally Pinot Noir or Pinot Meunier. Noirs is going to be from multiple red grapes or black grapes.
Oh.
So you could have Pinot Meunier, which is kind of like a variant of Pinot Noir, and any other kind of grapes that you want to make a sparkling wine of. And they make sparkling wine in Bordeaux, and it's from like Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. So you might have a Bordeaux Blanc de Noirs. Now, Blanc de Blanc is a white from a white grape, generally Chardonnay.
Makes sense.
In Bordeaux, it could be Sauvignon Blanc. In Alsace, it could be Pinot Blanc. So it kind of varies throughout the world. And then if you add the Blancs, if you add the S on it, it means it's made from multiple white grapes. And generally, if you see just Brut on it, it means it's probably a combination of like Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and because it is like it's a big deal. Like when you get a sparkling wine and it just say Blanc de Blanc, they make sure that you know that you got a sparkling wine that was just from a white grape, and Blanc de Noir just from a red grape, black grape, and Brut generally. I mean, you can have a Blanc de Noir Brut, but they like the label. If you just see Brut on it, it probably came from multiple grapes,
white or red.
Now, the other thing to mention too is like vintage. So if you see like most of the sparkling wine in the world is considered non-vintage, or a better term that they try to use is multi-vintage, because you're using a combination in a multi-vintage or a non-vintage. You're mixing different years, different things that you've had in like a tank, and storing them together and producing a very specific style of sparkling wine. And it's usually a little bit cheaper, but there are definitely ones out there that are very expensive. And when you see a vintage on it, like 2020, that means everything that went into that was from that specific vintage. So in that case, they're trying to capture a higher end wine that's reflective of the climate and the growing season for that year.
Yeah, so if you're looking at a champagne menu and you see NV, the letters NV next to the champagne, you'll know that's non-vintage. It should be a little bit more affordable than if you see a 2016 champagne on the menu. That one's probably going to be pricier because that was from what they considered a perfect vintage, good enough to be on its own and not blend.
Is there any, I'm trying to think about a phrase, sorry. Is it to gain a consistency so that you're selling the same price year over year with the same results, the same taste?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you can go in and get, what would be a good, like, non-vintage, good champagne?
Like a Shannon?
Yeah,
Like a
anyway.
non-vintage?
Gruet?
Yeah, like, well, whatever. You're trying to, you're exactly right. Every time that you have that wine, that sparkling wine, it should be the same or pretty close.
Yeah.
And it also helps determine in champagne your house, my air quotes again. That's your house style that you're trying to establish. And it might be different from somebody else down the road. They might take a different approach. They might do more Pinot Noir driven champagne, and that's their house style. And your house style might be more Chardonnay based. And over the year, not every historically in champagne, vintages have been wildly inconsistent because it's a really cold region to grow grapes in. Probably generally used to be regarded as the coldest climate to grow in. So you're what you got for yields every year and the quality of your grapes really there was a big swing. So that was the idea. When some years you got a huge production and a great quality and you could make a vintage champagne from it, and some years you didn't get much, or the quality was a little bit lower. And so the idea of a multi-vintage or non-vintage champagne came from that. Like you're using up your resources and combining them together and delivering a consistent house style.
That makes sense.
And I'm sure that the same thing is true here locally, is that we do the same thing. So at Carter Estates and Thornton are the two only 2 producers locally here in Temecula that can make a traditional style. And you see on their listing for things, they do a non-vintage or multi-vintage, and then they have vintage champagnes as well, vintage sparkling wines. See, I mix it up too. It's okay. You can call sparkling wine champagne. You're not the only people you're going to offend are the French, and they're offended quite easily by anything, it seems like. That's my hot take for this podcast. I'm trying to. Okay, so I mentioned like rosé. So you see, rosé champagne and rosé sparkling wine is a more popular thing because rosés have become quite popular in the last 10 to 15 years. So again, you can make it by adding a little bit of like color when you do the dosage, but you can also early on in the whole process before when you have your base wine, you can blend together like your Pinot Noir, which has some color to it, maybe with a Blanc de Pinot Noir that didn't have any color to it, along with your Champagne or your Chardonnay that has, very little golden color. And you can blend your rosé at that point. Yeah. So it's really all on the individual person and how they want to go about, like, do I want to construct my rosé at the end or do I want to construct my rosé at the beginning? It's all preference, I think. I don't think there's an advantage either way. And I would say that if it's going to be a darker rosé, I think you have to do that more at the beginning, though. So if it's a real faint,
otherwise you're adding a lot of still wine.
Yeah. But usually a lot of the champagne from Champagne rosés I've seen are lighter in color, unless they're like a Blanc de Noir rosé. Then it would already have the color at the beginning from the whole base wine production.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I think we talked about that on the rosé episode too. That's in Europe, it's, I don't want to say illegal, but you are really not allowed to in most regions make rosé by blending white and red wine. But in Champagne, that is the one of the few regions in Europe where it is allowed and actually very common.
Okay, I was going to say, that was a cardinal sin. Why? Because like, you're not supposed to, obviously, you have, if you're doing it, you have your creative authority, but I was like, I thought that was not allowed necessarily.
Yep, and so Champagne is the one of the regions in Europe where that is not only allowed, but very common.
And here in the U.S., we can just do whatever we want.
Yeah, we can do whatever here.
Yeah, I think other regions have, if you see Cremant, so Cremant is the name for traditional styled sparkling wine in France that does not come from Champagne.
Yeah, so you can have...
They're so good quality, such good quality and great pricing on a Cremant.
Almost
it's the same thing.
Every region in France makes a Cremant.
Bordeaux, Loire, Alsace,
Jura,
Burgundy, even though, So, anything that you see Cremant is still a really high quality. It just doesn't get to name itself Champagne. So that's it.
Yep.
There is one more, really two more methods, but one more method, and it's called the tank method. And this is generally how Prosecco is done, but also a lot of higher volume wine is done. It's the same idea is that you have to have a second fermentation that produces these, all those aromas and flavors. But instead of doing it in the bottle, you take the base wine and you move it to another tank, and you do it inside the tank. So you have a large volume of liquid that instead of a tiny volume of liquid, you have a large volume of liquid, and you generally are trying to, again, do a large volume at the same time to keep your costs down because the riddling process by hand or by machine is expensive, and you want to control the flavors that are there. So again, like Prosecco, this is probably like the most obvious one to me because in Prosecco, you want to retain all the kind of like floral components and fruitiness that's in the initial wine. So you don't want to do that in the bottle. You want to do that in a big tank where it's controlled. And it's cost effective. And we see quite a bit of that in Temecula, actually. A lot of the wines, the sparkling wines you see will have been done in the tank method.
Why is that?
It could be a couple reasons. Having space in your facility to do the whole riddling process takes up a huge amount of cellar space. Also, I feel like maybe around here that's kind of just what is the style, just a fresher fruitier style. And yeah, I feel like it comes down to cost for the winemaker.
So we need more caves, basically.
We need more caves. I think Thornton has, I haven't been there myself, but they have a wine cave where they actually do hand riddling.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a cave,
that's right.
but yeah,
I'm not sure either.
I've seen a picture of it.
Oh, and so one more, which is you're going to see called Asti. Are you familiar with Asti? Moscato
I've
di
seen
Asti?
it on a label.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's similar to that, but what happens is you generally keep your base wine and it starts to ferment, and then at a certain point you stop fermenting your wine and you leave that sugar in the base wine, and then it's stored super cold in big huge tanks. And it sits there until they basically get an order for more bottling. So it could be there being chilled and sugary. Basically, you just got a sugary wine, and when they're ready to bottle it, they basically just they bottle it, and I can't remember exactly. They stop the fermentation, right?
They stop fermentation so that it's when they do bottle it, it's a lot lower alcohol because the yeast hasn't eaten all the sugar. So it's made kind of a low alcohol wine. It's also made a sweeter style. So because of all that sugar that's left over.
But the pressure's already there. So they don't add more carbonation to
Right.
it. The carbonation's already there. It's sealed up and it's carbonated, and so literally just go right into bottling. And then that carbonation, along with the sugar, along with the wine, is already in the bottle and sealed up. Now it's not a lot of carbonation to blow up a bottle, which is why a lot of Moscato di Asti is just done under a screw cap. So it's not gonna, and it's what they call atmospheres of pressure. It's way less. It's like the frizzante, which we were like
Lightly fizzy.
So Lambrusco is lightly fizzy. Moscato di Asti is lightly fizzy. You can get a lot of stuff that's just lightly fizzy, but they're also really delicious if you have a sweet tooth. So, and we do not see any. If you go out into Temecula wine country and you see an Asti, it means that it's probably was purchased that way and produced in Italy and then brought over. And the only one, Europa, I think, might have an Asti.
Yes, they do.
But
I think it's from Italy.
It is. And Robert Renzoni, I'm pretty sure that is also another one that it comes from Italy. They bring it over and they sell it here. So, yep. So that's it. So that's the main production methods. Any questions that you would have for us on any of the production methods? Because we have 4 wines today, and I am going to blind pour these for the ladies, and they're going to try and guess what each one of the bottles. Was it a traditional style? Was it a tank method? Was it a pet nat? Or was it a forced carbonated sparkling wine? So last second, I guess you can taste and ask questions at the same time. That's we all allow that, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll allow it.
I like that option.
Well, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna pour some wines, and then we'll get to the funner part of this.
Woohoo!
Cheers. All right, welcome back to Pour Temecula. I've poured 4 wines. We've gotten a chance to try them. It's kind of varied today. So we have 4 different varietals, actually. One of them is a traditional Chardonnay. Another one is all Sauvignon Blanc. Another one is all Arnase, which is an Italian grape. So you can go back and listen to our Italian white wine episode to get a better idea for that grape. And then the other one is also 100% Zinfandel. So it's a total range of grapes here, which is very apropos considering that Temecula is a total range of grapes as well. So it's very fitting. And then also, to make this even more difficult, they're all from different vintages, not necessarily. So 2 of them are, I would say, a vintage. They're all from the same vintage, like a vintage wine. And then 2 of them, I think, are like a combination of non-vintage or multi-vintage blends of wines. And then to make it even more complicated, they have different sweetness levels too. One of them is considered zero dosage. So, and I'm pretty sure there are a couple that are
Considered
brut
with
style
air
that have, and then even more complicated, one of them is a pet nat, and it's cloudy compared to the other 3, which is kind of like a little obvious which one is the pet nat out of the group here. So let's see. Yeah, we have a traditional style wine, the traditional sparkling method champagne wallet style. Then we have a tank production style wine. We have a petulant natural style wine. And then the last one we have is a force carbonation injected wine. All right. Where do you want to start? Questions. I know what they are. So for starters, the ladies do not have any idea what we have here.
So the first thing I was looking at was the bubbles in the glass of each one. So wine number 1, which we'll post a picture of them on our Instagram. Wine number 1 has one small little stream of bubbles coming up from the bottom of the glass. Wine number 2 looks very bubbly. It's very consistently bubbly. And then wine number 3 is kind of in between. And then wine number 4 is cloudy.
Wine number 4 is cloudy.
And a completely different color.
Yes. So the first 3 wines, 1, 2, and 3, all have a very similar, I would say, pale yellow complexion, although I think number 1 has a little bit more
darker.
gold, a little
Yeah.
darker. But they're really close. The last one is kind of like peach colored.
Yeah.
And cloudy.
I did get, so these all tasted completely different from what I thought they were going to taste.
Well, not that I knew what to expect, but I thought I knew at least what one of them was. I think I still do, but
Like, number 1, it smells, I guess, traditional to me. I kind of get those little bready notes to it on the nose, but when I had a sip of it, it does not, I don't know, it doesn't taste like that traditional method champagne.
I thought it was a bit tart, but I did, after it sat for a minute, I did get that breadiness and the aftertaste, like on the finish. It kind of came through lightly, but I thought it smelled amazing. Mm-hmm. It's very bright.
Yeah. I feel like there's a little hint of sweetness, too.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
And then number 2, I wrote down aggressive bubbles.
Oh, yeah, for you, yes.
For me,
It's fair. Shannon is not the biggest fan of carbonated things.
no. Yeah,
I just
it's
think aggressive in general.
aggressive bubbles, aggressive sweetness. It reminded me of drinking like a soda, not in like it doesn't taste like a soda, but just like it's sweet and very bubbly. Rick's like nodding his head. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. What about the third one?
I think I know what that one is.
Number 3, love this one.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, no, I'm questioning myself.
but we have very different tastes in sparkling wines.
It's true.
I love Prosecco. I mean, if I could get Prosecco without the bubbles, I would, which shout out to
You
Katie
can.
Ryan. They got me a bottle of
you
Prosecco
can.
without bubbles. But it reminds me of that. It's very light, very fruity. It's just bright, refreshing, a little fizzy. Yeah, I enjoy this wine number 3.
Really? I feel like it leaves so much more. To me, drinking sparkling wine or drinking, champagne, when I'm lucky, right? It tends to be a lot like just kind of smoother, flatter, sometimes creamy, the ones that I'm buying at least. And this is so much brighter and like a very strong brightness to it. I don't know how else to describe that, but it's not what I would traditionally be drinking.
Yeah.
It's definitely different. It's unique. And I would agree with you on the fruity side. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that one is my style, what I would prefer. So I feel, because of that, I feel like number 3 is the tank method. and then number 4.
Okay, number 4.
I get a lot. Rick, you said melon earlier.
I did.
Get melon.
Interesting. So I
Apricot
didn't,
peach.
and I
Lacy
despise
hates
melon so much, and I didn't get that, which is really interesting to me.
I get like a cantaloupe, like that kind of melon.
don't
Not,
like
She
those.
hates
Yeah.
cantaloupe.
like honeydew. Okay.
Cantaloupe and honeydew are the just the top 2 worst fruits. But
It has the color of like.
It looks like a cantaloupe.
It looks
does.
like a
No, it
cantaloupe,
100%
yeah.
does,
Or
yes.
like a pink grapefruit, yeah, like color.
Oh yeah.
But to me, it smells like a very, very light raspberry. Like if you go in the grocery store and they're not ripe, they're in Costco in the big bin and they've been in the cooler, that's what it smells like to me. That kind of
Yeah,
raspberry.
kind of like a fruit punch or fruit
Yeah.
bowl, like mixed to it.
I want to say like Starburst, like tropical Starburst flavors, but without the sweetness. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 4th one is most definitely the Petula Natural.
Definitely
Pet
the pet nat.
Yeah, there's no mystery. There's no mystery. The real mystery is what you think the first 3 wines are.
Oh.
Do you feel confident in saying any one of the 3 in particular is the traditional styled wine?
I'm leaning towards saying that about number 1. What about you, Lacy?
I'm leaning towards 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about what would be the reverse of that? The force carbonated one.
3.
I thought,
Remember, in the force carbonated, you're really not going to get any or many of those sort of like autolysis notes. I didn't mention autolysis, but autolysis is a process of that the lees creating the flavors of biscuit and
bread dough,
bread, all the things I
brioche.
mentioned earlier.
Okay, so
Shannon is questioning herself.
I am questioning myself. I thought number 2 was the forced carbonated because it's so bubbly. But I was thinking about what you said earlier, how typically with forced carbonated, the bubbles kind of die off after you pour it in the glass, which makes me think maybe number 1 is the forced carbonated. But number 1's the one where I get those like leesy notes.
Okay, so what would that maybe tell you? What does Tank do?
So Tank keeps everything fresh.
Yes,
Fresh fruit. I feel like 3 is Tank. It's fresh fruit.
but but you just said something with number 1 that you picked up on.
Number 1, I feel like has the Leesy. Yeah, I feel
Okay.
like that's the
So in-
traditional.
Okay, so traditional, yes, you're going to get the Lacy autolysis notes, but also in Tank method, you're going to get some of that too, just to a lesser degree.
That's true because it is in there. It's just a larger volume of wine to lees.
And I think some of it is kind of like varietal dependent and how long you leave it on the lees too inside the tank. Obviously, the longer that it sits in the tank, the more of those notes you're going to get. But, like in the case of Prosecco, since we're talking about that, they just want the second fermentation and they want it to stay fresh. So in Prosecco, you very rarely get a lot of those notes, those autolysis notes. All right.
I'm so confused now.
You gotta go with something. You got a 1 in 3 chance.
Okay,
that's
all
pretty
right.
good odds. I would take that.
I
would take that. So I'll go. You can ponder it a little bit
Yeah.
more. I'll go get the wines. Okay.
I'm getting some like texture from number 2 that I didn't get earlier. That's maybe making me think it's the traditional one. I don't know.
I don't know either. Ooh.
I am gonna just say my guess, and then you can say yours.
Okay, perfect.
I think number 1 is traditional. 2 is forced carbonated. 3 is Tank. 4 is Pet Nat.
All of mine are so different. Okay, so I think that number 1 is Tank, number 2 is traditional, and number 3 is forced carbonated.
One of you is completely correct.
Oh,
Oh no. I'm not generally very good.
Do we
at
want to
these
comment?
exams.
Do we want to comment on the bottle? Okay, so number 4 is definitely the Pet Nat. This is
Yes.
from Ace. I think we were talking earlier. This is probably 2024. We made this in 2024. Released it last year in 2025.
I think so.
It is 100% Zinfandel. It definitely has a little kind of orangish color now, like light peach colored. The bottle itself, because it was not disgorged in from the bottle, it still has all the dead yeast settling around. And this sucker, when I opened it up, I had to put it in the sink because it was like a mini volcano for about 5 minutes. So sorry, Dirk. We lost a little bit of liquid, but not too much. I've definitely seen worse as far as that goes. But it definitely has a very I hate to say it, like an unappealing amount of crud in the bottom of it.
Yeah.
I think if you were
Quite
looking
thick.
at that bottle as I was pouring a glass for you, you would be like, what
Whoa,
are you serving
yes,
me?
Yeah. So it definitely, there's nothing off about it, the taste,
No.
though. There's nothing
No.
bad about it at all. I think it's nice. It's fine. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little cloudy. So, yeah. All right. One of you, so we're 50-50. One of you is right. So
Ooh,
My confidence is not high.
I actually think you're right because you drink more sparkling than I do.
I don't know.
Okay, which one are you more certain about, Lacy?
The method or the
Which wine number? We'll
number?
reveal that one first. Whichever one you think you're most confident about.
number 2,
You said was traditional.
traditional.
Number 2 is indeed the traditional style. So it is a Thornton zero dosage, all natural. So no dosage, supposed to be bone dry. I don't feel like I've had drier than
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Now, I guess one thing we didn't talk about is where a lot of the grapes from sparkling wines, Temecula, that are sold come from. A lot of them are not from Temecula at all. The only ones you generally will find, we'll talk about one later, but there's few producers that sell a sparkling wine. The wines are actually either produced here or the grapes come from here. And I thought because Thornton does produce their own wines from here, that I was buying a bottle that was from here, but this is from Monterey County. So the grapes are purchased from Monterey County and then brought down here to Thornton and produced into sparkling wine. So you see some of that. I didn't even realize it until this morning when I put it in the fridge to bring here, that it was not from Temecula at all.
You know what? I did a tasting there of mostly sparkling back in October, November, and I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised. It was really nice. Like almost everything I had was bubbly.
Oh, good. I had their brut, and it was for a brut style. It was very sweet. And I think the grapes were, excuse me. I think the grapes were from here, so they were already kind of like on the riper side, because most grapes are. And then the extra dosage kind of like put it like over the
edge a
top,
little bit,
right?
yeah.
So that's why I ended up getting this from them instead, untasted.
That's so interesting. I thought this was the sweetest one. I will say the aggressive bubbles have died down a lot.
Yeah.
It's actually really enjoyable now.
But when you say aggressive, like harsh in the mouth, or were you thinking like it just was bubbling a lot?
No, it was just, like harsh in the mouth for me.
Okay.
For somebody who does not drink carbonated things, it was like I took a big gulp of soda and swished it around like Listerine.
Interesting.
Just
I thought it was also the softest of. To me, it was the softest bubbles.
It
and
is
overall,
now.
the wine was like the creamier than all the rest of them.
Okay, yeah.
So, which is kind of a good sign that was probably done traditional style in a bottle. Okay, so number 3, this is the force carbonated wine, and this is from Cougar. This is their what they call Cougar Bubbly, but it's force carbonated Arnase. Now I think they do it all here because it's their Arnase that they grow here in Temecula, and then they just inject it at the bottling. When it goes to bottle, they just like soda, they inject it with carbon dioxide to get the bubbles.
Huh.
So, but there's no sediment to this, so nothing's happening in the bottle. They're really just trying to retain all the good qualities about the wine, the florality, acidity, the fruitiness, and give it a little bit of a bubble. So
That, yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah, we had this before. It was pretty good. We liked it. That's why I got it. And it was one of the few examples in Temecula of a producer or a winery actually labeling how exactly they've made this wine. Very few of them do. In Temecula, it's been one of our constant gripes
our pet peeves.
on the show. Because we try to look up information to communicate that, and it's absent a lot of times.
Sure.
So we have to ask, we have to email, or we just make it up, because we're going to do that. But in this case, they put all the information, and they mentioned that it was forced carbonated. They're probably not the only person that's doing it here. It's just that they're very transparent in what they're doing. So
it's delicious.
yeah,
I like that one.
it's pretty good. And really inexpensive for Temecula, like under 30, I think it was $28.
I have cheap taste.
And then finally, the wine number one is going to be our tank method style. And this is from Akash. This is Dreamville, and it's 100%, we believe it's 100% sparkling Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay,
So
that's why I was thrown off, because I've had this before and it doesn't taste like I've had it before.
I just had it last weekend, and it doesn't taste how I had it last weekend.
That's crazy. I thought for sure I was going to know which one that was.
I remember seeing some like videos they've posted of doing this in the past. Is that they I think in the past they have done it by like the traditional style, but it was probably very inefficient. I think I think the first time they tried it was maybe 2020, 2019. And I remember them posting videos, and they would just show them disgorging it, and like half the stuff was gone. I think maybe I talked to someone, and they were losing like half the bottles or whatever. So so maybe that's why the tank method is a better process for them, more efficient, more cost effective.
Sure.
So it makes sense. So when you mentioned that you got the little bit of autolysis notes. Yeah, that was the sign.
Okay.
That was the. You just didn't like the bubbles in the second one.
I just really did not like the bubbles.
But Lacy nailed it. So we've done our job of educating. Now we just have to educate. We have to re-educate Shannon.
Re-educate me.
So of the four wines, Lacy, did you have a favorite? I'm putting you on the spot. Or ones that you preferred over the other?
I liked the traditional the best. I really did. I thought it was nice. The Sauvignon Blanc is it's just very fascinating, because I expected it to taste so differently. But now that it's sat for a little bit and it's come to temperature, it's actually really nice too. It's like just kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah, we didn't talk much about temperature, but everybody puts their champagne or sparkling wine into the fridge, pulls it out, pops the cork, pours it. A lot of times it doesn't need to be that cold. So if you take it out and like half an hour later, then you open it, or just pour a glass and like I always like pour a glass and I'll just let it sit there for like 10 minutes, let it warm up a little bit, and then have it. And then as it warms up, you get a lot more flavor, more stuff out of it. So more complexity.
Yeah, I felt that way, what you said about the Sauv Blanc number one. I feel that way about number two. I'm drinking it now. The bubbles have kind of died down a little bit, and it's delicious.
Yeah. Yes. Wait, so which was your favorite?
I still feel like my favorite, I mean, I have to go with what I thought when I was blind tasting, is number three, the forced carbonated. It's so like refreshing and just fruity, and
we're on a roll with Cougar wines.
We are.
So we've had some pretty good ones lately.
Yeah.
So I know.
Good job, Cougar.
They're a little divisive. They have been because they do all Italian. That's all they do. So you either really like it and enjoy it, or you're just not into the grapes at all. And especially on the red side, I would say is that there are some Italian grapes that aren't as enjoyable as others. But we found a couple recently that we've really enjoyed, including this one.
It's been a couple of years since I've been there. Maybe we'll have to go back.
Yeah.
And do a tasting. Fill out our passports.
Yes.
I think I'm going to say I like actually most of these pretty equally. I'm happy to drink any of them really, or make a cocktail, a spritz out of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think the one from Cougar especially I mean, that's definitely like
That's a
you
good
could mix that in.
spritz wine, yeah.
That is a good spritz wine. I wouldn't waste like I wouldn't mix the first two though with something else, unless it was like a Cure Royale or something like that, where you're adding just a little bit of another liquor to it to give it like a more of a stronger flavor.
Yeah,
But-
I feel like they're complex enough on their own.
Yeah, it seems like they went through a lot of work, and they probably a little bit higher priced than the Cougar one because of just the method. So, including the pet nut, I enjoyed that one too. The only thing I wish it was disgorged and it had a little bit of a sugary note to it. I wish it had a little bit of a dosage to it.
Yeah, when I had that last year, because I think Dirk and Michelle Ace hosted a Valentine's dinner last year, and they served that as like the welcome starter wine. It was totally different. Today it's like melony, a little bit citrusy. Back then it was very like red fruity and just totally different. It's kind of wild how it's changed.
No, that is pet nat, so it's still undergoing all these autolysis processes while it's in the bottle. So, yeah.
I have
Any
another
last thoughts?
No.
Yeah?
That was a lot of fun.
So fun.
Yeah,
So I think we mentioned the like Thornton and the South Coast / Carter Estates are generally the two people who produce their own traditional style spine. You will see other people have traditional style sparkling wines on their menus. Generally, those are done elsewhere. Either they take their grapes, as we learned from Raul Ramirez last week, they grow everything, all the grapes that go into their cava, which is the same as traditional style method. They're all grown on their estates and then taken up north and produced into a sparkling wine. So it's their grapes, just somebody else is producing that wine style for them because it's difficult to do here. Or in some cases, like I found out today with Thornton, is they're getting the grapes and then bringing them down here. So generally, the other way is that they're just buying pre-produced sparkling wine and putting a label on it and calling it their own, because there's a whole market for that. And then, that's the main ways. Yeah. But everybody, like I said, everybody now. This Palumbo, do they have a sparkling wine?
Not right now.
So there's a few that don't.
Yeah.
They have to catch on. All right. Any other last thoughts? Good. You can hit us up online if you want to, or send in emails. Tell us we did an amazing job. Tell us we did a really crappy job. Whatever it is, whatever. We'll interact with you. We respect you. So have a great day, and thanks for joining us once again. And cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.